Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today our mission is, well, pretty straightforward, giving you a real shortcut to understanding and mastering the A3 management process. We're not just talking about, filling out a template. It's about getting into the deep thinking, the philosophy that really drives continuous improvement. We're diving into a cornerstone text for anyone serious about KAIZEN, managing to learn. Using the A3 management process to solve problems, gain agreement, mentor, and lead. The insights here come primarily from author John Shook. He's an industrial anthropologist, spent time at Toyota, also co-authored Learning to See, and the foreword is by Jim Womack. So real heavy hitters in the lean world.
Yeah, and what's so interesting, right, is how often A3 gets misunderstood. People see the paper, that big 11 by 17 sheet, and think that's it. But the book and Shook's work makes it crystal clear. A3 is way more profound. It's actually the core system for developing your people. And it's the critical link, really, between the big picture strategy, Hoshinkanri, and what happens day to day on the floor, the actual problem solving.
So we're looking past the form itself to the thinking. The A3 thinking that turns managers into effective mentors. Okay, let's unpack that. A3 is just a paper size, technically. But you're saying in lean organizations, it becomes like organizational currency. How did that work?
Exactly. It works because it standardizes the methodology for things like innovation, planning, problem solving, making decisions. It forces a kind of structure onto the thinking process. And when you adopt it seriously, the result is organizational learning. But it's learning that's deeply rooted in the actual work, operational learning.
Right.
And the book positions this approach as fundamentally better than the old command and control style. Top-down management. It shifts the whole center of gravity inside a company. It moves you away from being purely authority-based, like do this because I'm the boss's, towards being truly responsibility-based. The person owning the A3, often the subordinate, is responsible for understanding and solving the problem. They own it.
And that shift is actually mirrored in the book's layout, isn't it? It's structured as a dialogue.
It is, yeah.
We follow a manager, Ken Sanderson, who's coaching his direct report, Desi Porter. And Desi learns leadership by working through a business problem using the A3 framework. That narrative approach makes it so much easier to grasp how it actually plays out. You see the coaching in action.
Absolutely. It shows the how.
So the A3 report itself needs to tell a complete story then. Standardized, but complete. Linking the context, the problem, the analysis, the solution, or countermeasure, as we'll get to, all on one page.
That's the goal. And the structure, the sequence of the sections, guides that scientific dialogue. If you try to skip a step or your analysis is weak, it becomes obvious really quickly when you discuss it.
So what are those core elements?
Well, they follow a pretty logical flow. You always start with the basics: title, owner, date, who's accountable. Then background. Why is this important? What's the business context?
Okay.
Next, and this is critical, current conditions. What do we actually know about the problem right now? And this has to be visual. Charts, process maps, data, not just opinions.
That visual element sounds key. No hiding behind words.
Exactly. It forces objectivity. After you've laid out the current state, you define clear goals or targets. Where do we need to get to? Measurable outcomes.
Right.
Then comes the analysis. This is where you dig for the root cause. We'll talk about the 5 whys here.
Okay.
Only after that do you develop proposed countermeasures. Notice countermeasures, not solutions. Then you lay out the plan, who does what by when.
Very specific.
And finally, follow-up. How will we check progress? What results do we expect? How will we reflect and adjust? It forces that complete PDCA cycle thinking.
That structure really does seem designed to stop people from just jumping to their pet solution. But getting that data for current conditions and analysis, that depends heavily on actually seeing the reality, right? The Jitshi Genbutsu Shugi principle.
Absolutely. Go to the Gemba, go to the real place where the work happens, where the value is created. You cannot understand a problem properly from a conference room or looking at spreadsheets alone.
You need direct observation.
You need the facts from the source. That browns the entire A3. Otherwise, it's just speculation.
So once you're there, at the Gemba, observing, what's the tool the book emphasizes for getting past the surface symptoms to the real root cause?
That's the 5 whys. It sounds simple, almost trivial, but Shook stresses how fundamental it is to Toyota's scientific approach. You keep asking why, repeatedly. Why did the machine stop? Why did the fuse blow? Why was there an overload? Why wasn't the bearing lubricated? Why wasn't it on the maintenance schedule?
Ah, so you peel back the layers.
Exactly. You push beyond the immediate symptom to find the underlying process or system issue. The goal isn't to find someone to blame, it's to find a flaw in the system you can fix.
And Taichiono's quote connects this directly to action. 5 whys equals 1 how. What does that mean in practice?
It means that if you've done the 5 whys analysis properly, if you've truly understood the root cause, the how, the effective countermeasure should become almost obvious. It should flow logically from the analysis.
I see. So if you're struggling to figure out what to do, you probably haven't dug deep enough with the whys.
Precisely. The analysis dictates the action. That prevents jumping to solutions that don't address the real problem.
Which brings us back to that interesting word choice you mentioned earlier, countermeasure instead of solution.
Right.
Why is that specific language so important in A3 thinking?
It reflects a core humility, really, a recognition that we rarely find permanent solutions in complex systems. Calling it a countermeasure acknowledges it's the best current response based on what we know today. But conditions will change, new issues might arise because of this countermeasure.
So it keeps you in that continuous improvement mindset, always provisional.
Exactly. It stops people thinking, okay, problem solved, we're done. It builds in the expectation of future adjustment. Every fix might reveal the next layer of the problem.
And if every plan is provisional, how does the A3 owner manage the risk when they propose these countermeasures? The book talks about evaluating a set of options, right? Set-based decision-making.
Yes, this is crucial. Instead of just proposing one single best idea, the A3 owner is expected to develop and compare several plausible countermeasures, maybe 3 or 4 options.
Why do that? Seems like more work.
It forces deeper thinking and objectivity. You have to analyze the pros and cons of each option based on data and criteria, not just advocate for your favorite.
So it improves the quality of the dialogue.
Tremendously. The owner presents the comparison, the trade-offs, then the coach, the manager, and other stakeholders can have a much richer discussion and collaboratively select the best path forward based on the evidence presented. Less bias, better decisions.
Okay, so you've analyzed, you've explored options, you've perhaps selected the most promising countermeasure. How do you get everyone else on board? Yeah. Especially if it affects multiple departments. This involves that concept of nimawashi, doesn't it?
It does. Nimawashi literally means preparing the roots or preparing the ground before planting a tree. In the A3 context, it's the essential, informal, behind-the-scenes work of talking to stakeholders, gathering their input, addressing their concerns, before you finalize the A3 and make a formal proposal.
So it's consensus building in advance.
Exactly. You're socializing the ideas, incorporating feedback, making adjustments. By the time you present the final A3, ideally there are no big surprises. Approval becomes more of a confirmation of the consensus you've already built rather than a hurdle to overcome.
That sounds fundamentally different from how many organizations make decisions. It leads to this idea of leadership and authority. If the manager is coaching, and the subordinate owns the problem, and the nimawashi, where does the authority actually come from? It's not just the org chart anymore.
It really isn't. The book explains this as pull-based authority. It's a radical idea. Authority isn't just granted from the top down based on your title. The person with the responsibility for solving the problem, the A3 owner, actually earns the authority to act.
Earns it how?
By doing the work, by rigorously applying the A3 process, by framing the issue correctly, gathering the facts, doing the analysis, developing sound countermeasures, and effectively engaging stakeholders through nimawashi.
So the quality of their thinking and their process earns them the right to lead the implementation.
That's it. The manager's role shifts. They validate the thinking process. They coach. They mentor. They remove obstacles. They aren't just dictating solutions. Their authority comes from their ability to develop their people's capability.
That's a huge shift in focus. Building capability, not just demanding results.
It's all about enabling the person closest to the problem to solve it effectively.
Okay, so this whole A3 process, this cycle of problem solving and learning, it's really powered by that classic continuous improvement engine, isn't it? PDCA plan, do, check, act, or adjust.
Absolutely. The A3 document itself is largely the plan part. You lay out the background, current state, goals, analysis, and the proposed countermeasure plan. Do is implementing the plan. But the check and act adjust phases are where the deepest learning happens, and frankly, where many initiatives fall down. This is where Hansei comes in.
Hansei, self-reflection. How does that fit into the A3 follow-up?
It's more than just checking if you hit the target. Hansei is a deep, honest critique of the process. Did the plan work as expected? If yes, why? What did we do right in our planning or execution that we should standardize?
Mm.
And if no, why not? Where did our understanding fall short? What were the flaws in our analysis or our plan? It's about identifying organizational shortcomings, process gaps, not blaming people.
So you learn just as much, maybe more from successes as from failures.
Exactly. You convert both into organizational knowledge, into improved routines and capabilities for the future. That's the engine of sustained improvement.
And that focus on the process, especially when things inevitably go off plan. What's the manager's role then? How do they maintain that learning culture?
The key mindset, which Schick emphasizes, is to focus on why things deviated, not who messed up. Treat the deviation as valuable data. Instead of blaming or demanding people just try harder, the coach asks, what happened? Why did our plan not match reality? What assumptions were wrong? What process needs changing? It keeps the focus on systemic improvement.
Which connects back to that famous Eisenhower quote the book apparently highlights. Plans are worthless. Planning is everything.
Exactly. It's often misunderstood. It doesn't mean don't make plans. It means the real value isn't the static plan document itself, which will inevitably change. The value is in the process of planning, the thinking, the investigation, the debate, the learning, the alignment. That's what the A3 process forces and captures. The A3 is the evidence of that valuable planning work.
So pulling this all together, if someone listening wants to truly embrace this, what's the big takeaway? What does A3 mastery really mean?
It really has this powerful dual purpose. On one hand, yes, it's a very practical, structured tool to achieve tangible business results, improve quality, reduce costs, solve problems. But maybe even more importantly, it's a system for developing people. It turns them into reflective, critical thinkers, effective problem solvers who take responsibility. It builds capability from the ground up.
So it's a management system disguised as a reporting format.
You could absolutely say that. It fundamentally changes the manager's job from controller to coach and developer of talent.
That really reframes the whole purpose of management, especially in a KAIZEN context.
It does. And maybe the final sort of provocative thought to leave people with, something core to A3 thinking, is this. In an organization truly practicing this, the constant emergence of problems isn't a sign that things are going wrong. It's actually a sign that the system is working.
How so?
Because every problem surface is an opportunity to improve the process, to learn something new, to develop someone's skills. The real danger signal is when you stop seeing problems.
So the motto becomes,
no problem is problem. If you think you have no problems, you're probably just not looking hard enough. Or your system for surfacing them isn't working. Problems are the fuel for improvement.
That's a powerful way to end. So the challenge for you listening is to move beyond just filling out the boxes. Try to embrace the A3 thinking. Next time you face a challenge or start a project, try applying this structured approach. Go to the Gemba, dig deep with the whys, build consensus with Nimawashi, and most importantly, reflect with Hansei. Stop just fighting fires and start managing to learn. Thanks for diving deep with us today.